Hey everybody, this is Javier Valderramos. This is Planet Texas. I have a guest today. I have Wade Simmons. Wade Simmons is training to be a pro wrestler at a Chicago Style Wrestling Training Academy. He's also an independent filmmaker with over 20 indie films under his belt. And his normal day job is he works at a funeral service. He's a funeral service worker. So he does all three things in order to make his day go by. Wade Simmons, is there anything I said? Would you like to introduce yourself properly?
Yeah, what's good? No, I mean, everything you said is true, so I'm cool with that.
After I described everything, just ran off all three things that you do, why do you do all three things? And we just go right off the bat and do that.
Well, so, to be honest, everything that I'm doing, I was already doing since I was a little child. Because, I mean, like, as a child, I was always, like, a big fan of Walt Disney. This might sound crazy to some people, but I used to read about his life. I used to read about, like, how he did what he did. And I always would, like, make up cartoons, characters, and things like that. And I was into photography. And there was a gentleman at my church, Brother McElroy. He was a photographer. He kind of took me under his wing. He even bought me a camera. And, like, when we would go to family events, like, I would film everything and, you know, take pictures. And I had always knew that I would be a filmmaker. But also, as a kid, I wanted to be a mortician, too. Now, I know that might sound weird, but I went to a lot of funerals. And just kind of, you know, being in an environment growing up in church, you see a lot of death and things like that. You know, I'm like, well, this seems like a decent job. So when I got older, I said I was going to be a funeral director. I was going to be a filmmaker. And I went for it. And I mean, as far as wrestling, I was a very big wrestling fan. I wrestled in high school. Me and my friend Cross and Jordan and Gus and my brother, you know, we all as kids, we used to be wrestling out in the front yard and things like that. So, like I said, nothing that I'm doing is new. I've been pretty much doing it my whole life.
What drew you to the funeral service working first? Like, what are the things?
For me, I think that I was just, you know, kind of, you know, curious about the process. I actually knew some morticians growing up from church too, the Robies, and they had been in the business for a long time, and they knew that I wanted to, you know, be in it. So I always kind of thanked them because one day they was like, you know, well, when you go to school or whatever, you know, we'll look out for you. So, you know, they took me under their wing, invited me to come to the funeral home and check it out. I was in high school at the time. But what ended up happening was that my teacher, she knew that I wanted to be a mortician, and she called Mr. Leak's son's funeral home owner, the son. She called his wife and said, like, hey, you know, I got a student here. He want to be a mortician. Can you talk to your husband about letting him come in? And so he told me, like, show up in a white shirt, a gold tie, black suit. Once I did it, then one day, I ended up being there for 11 years, and then I ended up going to school for it. And, you know, the rest is kind of history. But, I mean, like, I feel like the one thing that drew me to, like, doing that is, like, me, I'm a very realistic guy. I've always kind of looked at life like time is very important. And, like, working in that field, to me, it just teach you, like, you know, you can't take life for granted. If you got things you want to do, you got to just do them because tomorrow not promised to anybody. You know, so I feel like, you know, kind of having that mindset, it kind of like, you know, it doesn't bother me working in that type of environment. You know, it just motivates me to go after the things that I want in life.
All right, so we were talking about, we just went through your funeral service, your day in and day out job. So you're also an independent filmmaker. So what exactly with the filmmaking is it that you do? By the way, so everybody knows, he lives in Chicago, Illinois. If you want to get a hold of him, it's Wade Simmons.
Yeah.
He has a Facebook. You have Instagram, I assume. You have all the social medias. All right.
Wade Jedi 99 on Instagram.
All right. So this independent filmmaking, and you told me you have over 20 films. Can you tell me what some of these films are?
Yeah. So actually, it's funny that you asked because, like, filmmaking, what ended up happening was that I recently graduated from film school back in 2020. Mm-hmm. Reason being was that I didn't get a chance to say this, but when I went to school to be a mortician, towards the end of my journey. We got through the program. We were pretty much ready to graduate, and we did have the graduation. But what ended up happening was that they ended up, some schools have these exit exams. I call them the exit career exam. And the reason being was that a lot of people struggled to pass the test. So what happened was that after I finished mortuary school, I had been going out there for like 6 months to go take the test. And I'm saying to myself, okay, wait, now, if you don't pass this test, you done spent all this time going to school or whatever. So you got to start thinking about, what if it doesn't work? Now, what you got to do? You got to find something else. So I was like, well, maybe I should go be a plumber because my family's in the plumbing business. So I went down to Vegas, went to work with my uncle for a little while. And once I got to work with my uncle, I had a lot of fun or whatever. But I'm like, wait, be real with yourself. This is not what you want to do. You always like film. Why don't you go to school to be a filmmaker? So when I was down in Vegas, I ended up calling a place in Chicago. And they told me, in this one school, I think it was like one of them bootleg schools. They was like, well, you don't even have to sit in the classroom, just send us the money or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I'm not that stupid. So I looked and researched another school called Flashpoint Chicago. And I talked to them and I went there. And then I enrolled in film school. Right around the time I went to film school, I finally passed one of those exams to be a mortician. But I went to film school. I started meeting a lot of people. I got a chance to meet Sean Anders, who's a Hollywood producer. He came to the school and talked to the students and stuff. And I started, meet all these other filmmakers. And so as soon as I got in film school, I just started producing my own content right away. Because again, like, I was like, well, I ain't waiting until I get out of school. Like, I came here to make movies. I'm going to make them right now. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. You got to get about it, get started on it.
Yeah.
It's always good to make the effort, and trial and error is always like one of the best ways to do things in life.
Oh, yeah. And, it's kind of funny because, like, when I look at, like, my story, right, my mind always go to George Lucas because George Lucas, that's my ultimate favorite filmmaker. And to be honest, almost every day I listen to his speech about like how he talked about how when he went to how when he was growing up, he loved cars, he liked going fast, but then he had an accident. And then the accident made him think about his place in the world. Was just starting to think about other things, and he decided to give education another chance because he did go to school for studying some other things. Like, I think it was like related to humanities or something like that. But what happened was he ended up going to film school with a friend. He thought he was going for photography, but it was a school of cinematography. And George Lucas goes to school. He ends up having the time of his life. He starts, instead of going right to Hollywood, he moves back to San Francisco. And now the man has a franchise that's worth over $1 billion. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the man sold a franchise to Disney.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I wish he wouldn't have did that. But
Yeah, me too. Me too, man. Like, I just watched that Obi Kenobi, and I was just, I don't know, man. Did you see about what they were talking about Reva? Like the forces.
Yeah, I wasn't so much against her character, but it was just, my thing was that, like, when they made the Obi-Wan Kenobi, like, some of the stuff that they did in there, it just doesn't match up with continuity, because I know, like, the one part where Vader and Obi-Wan battles in the end, where he says, when I left you, you were but a learner, right? But then Vader, he whoops Kenobi in one of the episodes, but, like, to me, they try to justify doing that, but that still doesn't match content. That don't make sense to me.
Well, the only thing that really truly upset me was, you saw the whole series of Obi Kenobi, right?
Yeah.
So when we first see Darth Vader show up, he just wrecks shop. Like, he's snapping necks, dragging people in the dirt. He just looks like a badass. And he does his best Freddy Krueger Jason impersonation, stalking Obi Kenobi. And I'm like, if he's this weak, why doesn't he just murder fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi and just be done with it?
That's what I'm saying. Like, it just, like, to be honest, I think Disney had good intentions. And I mean, don't get me wrong, like, there was some good moments in it. I'm not like totally against it, but I'm just saying that personally, I felt that if they were going to make that, probably were better off not even letting having Vader and Kenobi even have it, because when he says, "When I left you, I was but a learner," right? I mean, he was apparently not no learner. The way he whooped Kenobi in that first few episodes that he whooped him in, like, to me, that just don't make sense. Like, it's like they kind of just threw that out the window, because I know, like, they say, well, it was 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, and Vader was still learning. But if you hated the man that much, you wouldn't have gave him no chance to get away. Ain't no way to justify that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know. And then the whole show, for all 6 episodes, I feel like Reba was a waste of time. Yeah, I'm gonna go there. I feel like all she did for 6 hours was grunt and scream and yell and run around with a lightsaber. That's what I felt like she did for 6 hours.
Well, I mean, if they were gonna use the Reba character, like I said, I wasn't totally against it, but if they were gonna use it, they probably could have saved that for something else. But I feel like just making the Kenobi thing, like to be honest, I feel like Disney would have been better off doing the series about Rebels, about a whole different set of characters that we never met before, and maybe gave like I say, like I'm glad that Aaron McGregor came back, but it's like I mean it was nice to see him again, but it's just. I just don't like how they kind of mess with Lucas continuity like that. Like, it's kind of like they might as well just, I'm not going to say it wasn't bad, but it's just, to me, it just shows like you sell your work and somebody else take it over, then they're going to do what they want with it.
It just seems like a lot of franchises are doing the bait and switch right now.
And then Mace Windu, I think they're going to bring him back. So my point is like, what's the point of dying in Star Wars if you're just going to come back?
Yeah. Yeah, well, what is he? He's a Force ghost, right? I was surprised surprised he came Palpatine. I don't even know what happened with that. Like, I don't know what the hell.
Like how Disney brought him back, right, to kill him off. So my thing was that if they kill him off, how they know he don't have another clone body somewhere else? So like what they do, it just brings more questions.
That's just the craziness. Like, a lot of franchises are doing that fucking baloney. That phony baloney-ness. It's like,
yeah, so like me, that's why as a filmmaker, I'm always an advocate for making fresh content. Sometimes I think you got to leave the other stuff alone, because a lot of times you're going to make a lot of more people mad. You know what I'm saying? Like, you ruined my childhood.
You remember watching women empowerment movies and it actually was special?
Yeah.
I was watching Aliens the other day with Sigourney Weaver, and I was like, that's a badass right there.
Yeah, like, but see, that's the thing. Like, I feel like a lot of filmmakers today, I feel like they should focus more on making newer content instead of just trying to, just
to repeat the same old
off of old stuff that they just not really doing nothing. Like, they just messing it up and making fans more divided.
Yeah, they are. They certainly are on some things like that.
Yeah, because I mean, Kenobi, like I said, I wasn't totally against it, but I'm just saying that to me, there were some things that they did that messed up continuity, and they tried to justify it. But again, if you would have whooped me like Obi-Wan did Vader and Revenge of the Sith, next time I see Kenobi, that fire wouldn't have been able to keep me from getting off him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like, I just watched Darth Vader murder like 3 people in a minute, and you're telling me you can't just outpower someone has used their force power in 10 years? Mm-hmm. I mean, I have hope for Ahsoka, that series.
Yeah, I think Disney still has some potential, and I mean I think the Reva character maybe has some potential in other things, but I feel like they just I feel like they could have just called it Reva, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of more of her story than Kenobi. They just kind of put Kenobi name over it. And I mean, maybe that wasn't their intentions. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt there, but that's the way that it comes across. I
mean, I need to see. They need to write Reva better. Is what that's one of the big issues with me is they didn't the way they wrote her.
But then another thing they didn't really explain was when they had all of the old Jedis, kind of kept in the tomb.
Yeah, I saw that.
You know, like they didn't really like. I noticed that. I think the one boy that was in the opening scene, they had him in there, but they didn't have the other ones in there, which is kind of weird to me.
They had them like fossilized, like Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of things in that show.
But now you know I'm hearing they're talking about making a Yoda series. I don't even know if I want them to do that, man.
I don't know. What's he gonna do? Sit on the planet for 6 episodes?
Nah, they're gonna just show Yoda getting whooped and they're gonna make Yoda seem more like a failure, bro.
I don't know that.
I don't want to see Yoda as a failure. I think him as as one of the best Jedi's, you know.
I just want them to. I want to see Ahsoka. I want them to bring back Admiral. What's his name from Rebels? I can't think of his name.
Thrawn.
Yeah, Thrawn needs to be the big bad. That's what I really want is Thrawn and Azeroth to come back.
I wish I had George Lucas' number. I'd be like, look, just do me a favor and just buy it back and did it.
Yeah, right. Just take care of it. Like we had our dreams has been crushed with.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't blame them. You know, I mean, for the price they probably gave him. I mean, if they threw that cash my way, it would have been gone too. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah, sadly they're doing that with Marvel now. Marvel's getting that treatment.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, I think it get to a place where, like, you know, I feel like stuff like Star Wars is so special. You know, I know they're trying to throw a lot of content out, but I kind of like the way George Lucas did. He did it, and then he put a movie out. He kind of took a break for a while, like, but it kind of kept the mystery going. But like nowadays, sometimes I feel like a movie doesn't have to explain everything.
No, it doesn't.
Like that's what like Hollywood is trying to do now. Like they're trying to explain everything, but when you explain everything, like I said, back to the Kenobi series, right? They were trying to justify some things, but it still didn't make sense. And then, like you look at Leia, like how she said, "You helped my father," you know, in the Clone Wars, whatever. Like she was saying it as if she never even knew who Kenobi was. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You know, I don't understand Leia. Like, how did this little girl be better than everybody else? She's like, she would have been grounded in red. Can't be like.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not trying to trash it because, like I said, I was glad that they gave the actors a chance to come back. But I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like. But you know, like I know that no little girl, like she's the smart. Like this girl is going to open up the padlock door to get the starship out. This is a smart little girl. I'm like, that little girl has no business in this adventure. All right, so we got a little bit of that conversation in. Now, so this pro wrestling, it's out of what, Chicago style wrestling? Have we gone through that one also?
Yep, that's correct.
Pro wrestling, how did you get into this?
So actually, because of filming, it's funny. Like one thing led me to another. But as I mentioned, I did wrestle in high school, freshman and senior year. Freshman year, I quit. Senior year, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna complete the whole season, and I did. You know, and we know we had a blast. But what ended up happening was that I had planned on making a documentary because I was wanting to move more into documentaries. I do have one out already, but I wanted to make a documentary about pro wrestling, so I was doing some research on pro wrestling in Chicago, and I came across Chicago style wrestling. So I reached out to Steve Boz, who's a very excellent wrestling trainer, by the way, really good guy. He told me just come on in and check it out. So when I came in and I talked, and we had been talking for maybe like two months or so before I even showed up. It was around like around October last year. So I ended up going in. When I was there, I ended up, you know, kind of seeing a couple other wrestlers and things like that. He showed me around, and he was like, well, what you think? I'm like, I think so. He said, well, when you gonna start? I said, start. Then I thought about it, like, you know what? Maybe I'll give it a try. So I started training then. You know, I can't always make it out like I want to, but, you know, whenever I'm there, I have a blast, man. And just to kind of be amongst a lot of up and coming talent, seeing some of the other wrestlers travel, every weekend doing different shows and and them kind of helping point me in the right direction. It's a lot of fun, man. I mean, it's a lot of fun.
Sounds fucking great, actually.
Man,
So,
some of the wrestlers are actually wrestling in AEW too, which is pretty cool. So it's like, man, I know that guy. Like,
yeah, I know. I'm here in Austin. Dustin Rhodes has an academy in the Austin area, and it's an affiliate link to AEW.
Yeah. A lot of it, and that's the wonderful thing about wrestling, right? Like, there's a lot of great things happening right in our areas, right? And we don't even know it. And it's funny because, like, I say that to say that a lot of people think that making their dream come true is hard. And I'm not gonna lie, it can be, but I learned that, like, you never know what you can do if you don't put yourself in a situation to do those things,
What a lot of people don't understand about what you just said. It's living your dream is one thing, but living your dream is another.
Yeah.
Like, believe it or not, if you get to do what you want to do as a living, it's not actually work.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people don't get. That's a hard thing to swallow.
And it's funny you say that because, like, when I kind of look at my life and look at my story now, right? It kind of make me think about how, like, everything that I wanted to do, right? I always, I'm also a very religious person, and I pray to God a lot, and I always like thank God. And one thing I learned about, like, faith and prayer and all these things, like, you can do all that, but you also have to put in the work for it. And I think that that's why sometimes a lot of people get discouraged about their dream because they be like, like, I don't really know how to go about it. But what I learned is, like, we're actually blessed to live in the times we live in because, like, back in the day when you wanted to do something, it was kind of harder because we didn't have the internet like we do now. I mean, the internet was around, but like now we got social media where you don't have to wait for nobody to give you the opportunity. You can create your own.
I know. Look what we're doing right now.
And see, to me, like, I feel like a lot of people focus more on, like, the negative side of the internet, like the online hate and all that. I mean, there's nothing we can do about that, but I feel like instead of focusing on all the bad things in the world, take time out of your life to make your dream happen because, like I say, for somebody who sees people put in a casket every day, see people take multiple trips to the cemetery, every day the same routine, you opening and closing caskets, you burying people young and old. It kind of make you look at life more realistically. Like, why sit around and focus on things that I have no control over? I don't have no control over the rest of the world, but I have control over making sure that I make the most of my life. And I always tell people, like, make the most of time. Don't let time make the most of you,
So I got a question for you.
Sure.
So the funeral service, has it ever interfered in your filmmaking or pro wrestling?
Actually, no, but with wrestling, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because to be honest, like, part of the reason why, like, I'm, kind of not getting promoted just yet is because I work on the weekend, and of course, in the funeral business, the weekend it's kind of like the most time when you really work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And on the weekend, I spend a lot of time at the funeral home. But, like, that's the thing now. Like, I'm kind of at the point in my life where I'm making adjustments because, I feel like in life things change. Like, what you used to be able to do sometimes when you got things that you're trying to do, we have to make adjustments. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not fair to want something in life, but not willing to make the adjustments to get that thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
that's what I was asking.
I'm kind of like in the process because, like, in a way, something happened to me in life that actually kind of made me really want to make these adjustments was because, like last year or so, I was finally diagnosed with spasmodic dysphonia, which we talked about that a little bit. But
Yeah.
for those of you that don't know what that is, it's a rare vocal disorder where like if you get stressed, your voice strains. If you're happy and joyous, your voice sounds normal because like people will be like, when you talk about your filmmaking, your voice sounds clear. But you come to work and you start dealing with the people, your voice sounds bad. And so I went to the doctor, and the doctor was telling me like, what if you ever thought about just giving up the funeral business and pursuing, just wrestling and filmmaking? And to be honest, that's kind of more so what my mindset is. But me saying that is like, I don't want people in the funeral business to feel like I don't like the business. I love the business, but I feel like the politics in the business kind of is what kind of made me a little more disgusted by it. Because like I mentioned, like when I went to school for it, I had been doing this 7 years before I even went to school. But what happened was that I noticed that when I went to school to be a mortician, I'm finding out like that a lot of people that go to school to be funeral directors, a lot of them don't even get licensed. And I mean, I've been to the news media and everything about this. And I was wondering like, why is that? But then when I started seeing the system and how they do things, I'm like, oh, I get it. They don't want everybody to be licensed. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I can only imagine what it costs to be licensed, to actually.
Yeah, oh yeah, once you get them. But it's like, I'm proud of everybody that did get their license and everything. But it's like, and I feel like with me, I kind of stopped caring about the funeral business because of my situation as far as me getting my license. It's not that I don't like to help the families or whatever, but it's kind of like this. Like, say for instance, if I'm a filmmaker, right? I go to Hollywood or whatever, and I want to make a movie, but I'm sitting back on the sideline, never getting a chance to do it. Then I probably would lose passion for it. If I go into pro wrestling and I'm sitting on the sideline and I'm not doing anything, I feel like when somebody has you in a place where you really, kind of like blocks you, I feel like you lose desire for it because you hear these stories even about people like in professional wrestling and things like that, right? Like some of the WWE superstars, where they talk about how they love wrestling, but sometimes the way politics does things, it can make you lose your desire for it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, but you know what?
I feel like that.
Go ahead.
I feel like that's what happened to me with the funeral business. Yeah.
If I were to tell you, I'm proud to see that you're actually working in the funeral service. It's not something that normal people do.
Yeah.
It really is. And you shouldn't leave the funeral service business until you're completely comfortable and ready to get into pro wrestling or be an independent filmmaker or even both.
Yeah.
Like I feel. Go ahead.
No, and what you said makes total sense, but it's like, I got really sick of these people with the politics because, like, if you do the research right now, right, it's only 20-something thousand funeral directors in the United States. And if you think about it, there are more than 20,000 people living in one state alone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, burnout happens, though. Maybe you just feel burnt out a little bit.
Yeah. No, but what I'm saying is that if you think about it, right, if you do the math, that means if a lot of these students are not passing these exams, that means people got to start looking at these schools. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And that's the part about it that I've been having a problem with is like, nobody has really did anything about the situation. But like I say, I know a lot of people who have been struggling to pass these exams. And the school are using these exit exams as a cover-up for their failures. Like, I feel like somebody should do something about this. So I'm a bit disgusted with them about that, if I'll be honest with you.
No, you can be honest. It's fine.
And I'm not going to lie, I love the people. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love the teachers. I love them as people. I think they're great and wonderful at what they do. But that doesn't mean that their system is correct,
No, I get it. I was just pointing out the fact that you shouldn't leave until you're comfortable and situated with one of the other two.
Yeah. Oh yeah. What that's what I'm saying. So I'm kind of working on making that transition because like I said, I'm the type of person where if I can't move forward in something, I'm not gonna stay there very long. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
Because I feel like that's time that I can never get back. And I don't, and like I say, like my mission in life is like to value every day that God give me and to not waste time because again, to me, it's just too precious to waste. You know, and I don't never want to live in regret. You know, I always want to look back and say, well, I thank God that if that didn't work out, I at least tried. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. So I got another question. So who are some of the people that you run into since you decided and made the decision to become an independent filmmaker and get into pro wrestling? Who are some of the people that you've seen that has helped you out a lot?
So some of the filmmakers that I've actually met, there's like I mentioned Sean Anders. There's quite a other few I met that I didn't really know their names like that, but they're doing some stuff. But to be honest, the teachers like John Otterbacher, Patrick Underwood, Killian, John Klein, like these are all teachers that they're not just teachers, but they're filmmakers. And like, you know, I really enjoy learning from them because like they all teach the same thing, but they all have a different approach. Like Mr. Otterbacher, he's more like if you tell him to look at your film, he gonna tell you everything that he noticed. Miss Killian, her approach was more like, you know, every filmmaker is different. You do it the way that you do it. Patrick Underwood, he was more like he gonna tell you like it is. Like he's like, look, you know, don't do this, don't do that. But I mean, to me, they all were kind of like role models because, you know, they really cared about their students and they really had a love for what they do, you know. And to me, I think that that was the good thing about going to film school was like these are not just teachers, but these are teachers who actually are still out working in the industry, which is pretty cool. Kind of like Spike Lee, because I believe Spike Lee teaches at one of the film academies in New York too. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So we've gone through quite a few things about you. Is there anything else that you wanted to bring up, mention, or talk about?
You mentioned some of the people that I met in wrestling. I got a chance to meet Hornswoggle.
You met Hornswoggle?
Oh man, that's my man. I got a chance to meet Scotty Too Hotty and actually have a conversation with him. That was pretty cool.
That's pretty interesting.
And then some of like AEW talent. I mean, that's training with us and you know always at the shows and stuff. I mean, I thought that was pretty cool. You know, even to kind of meet Dante Martin from AEW. That was pretty nice. You know, a young man coming up in the wrestling business. So I mean, but like I say, to me, just everybody that I meet has been awesome though. You know, because the thing about filmmaking and wrestling is that the people that you meet, everybody has potential to do something great. You know, it just depends on how far they go with it. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, no matter what, you're gonna always have the indies, you know? And I mean, the indies is a great place to be. Because I mean, you meet so many more people, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, you're in Chicago, so it should be pretty easy. Did you go to did you go to Double or Nothing? Or what was it? The Forbidden Door. Did you happen to go to Forbidden Door?
I did, like I said, I've been missing out on everything because I've been working see the thing about independent wrestling that I really enjoy is that when you start getting into wrestling, you really become family with the people in the industry because I mean you do a lot of traveling, whether it's in one state to the next state, and because you think about it, it's almost a show every weekend, you know. I mean, so when you start really getting booked, I mean, you pretty much, maybe driving because we're in the Midwest, so you might be driving to Wisconsin, you might be driving to Iowa, you may be going Southern Illinois, so you may go to St. Louis, or you might go up to Minnesota. So I mean, it's a lot of traveling, but it's a very small, pretty much circle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's like a small.
You become family because like I look at I don't get to make a lot of the events because I work on the weekends, but you see everybody hanging out and going to these different shows and stuff like that. I like somebody, one of the wrestlers threw a party or whatever, and Chris Jericho came. I thought that was pretty cool.
That sounds pretty good, man.
Yeah, I'm like, man, I could have met Chris. I could have, because Jericho was one of my childhood favorite wrestlers too. I mean, that would have been pretty nice. But like I say, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm glad to meet everybody though.
All right then. Thank you, Simmons. So, was there anything else that we can put towards the end?
Yeah, well, so I guess to say in the end, only thing that I just have to say is that I would encourage all the listeners, like, whatever dreams you have, don't listen to people. Trust your instinct, trust your God-given instinct, and just, make the most of time. Don't let time make the most of you, and don't let people limit your potential or your dream, because you can do anything if you make the time to do it.
All right. Thank you, Simmons. And so everybody knows, Simmons is a training to be a pro wrestler. He's an independent filmmaker. He's also a funeral service worker. And we're fixing to sign off. I'll have the links posted when I post the episode. You'll be able to find him wherever he's at. You can stalk him if you want to. All right, we're going to sign off.
All right. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.